Question 1. What are some ways that recruits can get you to take an interest in them?
Well, I think the easiest way for us to take an interest in a recruit is by them playing club volleyball on a competitive team, playing in competitive tournaments. That's where we do the majority of our scouting. We spend almost every weekend on the road out recruiting and watching talent. So having the ability for them to play at a high level of volleyball, playing as close to year-round as possible, is one of the primary ways for us to become interested in them. The easiest way is for them just to simply send us an email or a letter notifying us that they're interested in our program, and we will follow up as soon as we can, and then we begin the process from there.
How early do athletes need to be noticed to have a chance to play at a major Division I school, and when is it too late?
I never believe it's too late. I think there's a trend in recruiting that it seems to be going earlier and earlier each year. For whatever reason, the class of 2017 is going earlier than anybody else that we've seen in the past few years. How early is too early? I really don't have a good answer for that. We've been out, we've scouted young women as early as 7th and 8th grade who had written us or who we had heard about from various sources. And so I really can't say how early is too early. As far as too late, there's still schools sometimes that are looking to fill scholarships late in March and April before the following fall where the student would attend college. So it's really important, I think, the freshman year just to try to indicate some interest to the school. The sophomore year is the year that most coaches go out and try to get a good evaluation on an athlete. If they're a late developer, we continue that evaluation into their junior year. And typically most of the recruiting in volleyball is done by the end of the junior year. However, there's still those stragglers, open scholarships, cases of injuries or transfers that we try to fill a scholarship even as late as somebody's senior year.
What are a few of the most common mistakes that prospective student athletes make in the NCAA college recruiting process?
I think the biggest mistake that I've seen recently has to do with email and correspondence. I think prospective student athletes don't understand how many emails a coach gets a day. For example, we get anywhere between 200 to 300, sometimes more emails a day that pertain to recruiting. And inside those emails, they have links, click to my bio, click to this, and we just don't have time to deal with that volume of email and have to do several clicks to find the information that we want. Really what we need to know right away is what position you play, how tall you are, what your vertical jump is, what your block touch is, maybe an area of study that you're interested in, what your grade point average is, and if you've already taken your board scores, what your SAT or ACT is. Those things need to be found without having to make a single click. And a lot of times when we get profiles from student athletes, especially ones that come from scouting services, we have to click 2 or 3 times before we get all the information we want, and we simply don't have the time.
How do you use social media when recruiting, and what is your advice to recruits about social media?
Recruits are allowed to use social media in any way they see fit. They can use Twitter to contact a coach. They can use Facebook to contact a coach, email, messenger. Really, the rules are not nearly as strict for a prospective student athlete as they are for colleges. Now, there are times and dates of which we can return certain types of correspondence, and dates in which we can email, or dates in which we can messenger or FaceTime or anything like that. But we always encourage recruits, if they're trying to get in touch with us, social media is a fantastic way to make direct contact with us. But it's also a great way to do research and learn more about the school that you might be interested in by following them on Twitter, by being a part of their Facebook page, by going online and looking at their official website. Those are all excellent ways to learn about the school you might be interested in.
What are some things that would keep you from recruiting a player?
Wow, where do I begin on this list? I think first and foremost, if somebody, I'm 6 foot tall, I'm not going to play center for the LA Lakers. I know that. So physically, that's one of the things that might keep somebody from playing at a particular school. Maybe you just don't fit the size of their typical athlete or the athleticism of their typical athlete. And I think it's really important that you have somebody who's realistic with you as to what level you might be able to play. I think it's important that you take a look at the roster of a school that you might be interested in to figure out, do you fit the size profile or do you fit the athletic profile of the student athletes they already have on their roster? I think those are two important things. Average test scores are extremely important. We may not be able to recruit somebody that we're going to have difficulty getting them into school. So that's something that we take a look at. But I think the biggest component and the one that's most often overlooked is effort and attitude. We spend a lot of time going around the country watching recruits play. And I don't think recruits realize that we are watching them more when they're not playing than we do when they're actually playing. And what I mean by that, during timeouts, are they paying attention to their coach? How are they treating their parents off the court? How are they with their friends off the court? How are they acting when they're away from their coaches? Those are all things that we are watching closely because those reveal character. And character is so important to the chemistry of a team. So those type of red flags, even if it's somebody who's a top 20 recruit in the country, those types of things really turn off coaches. How you treat people, how you treat a teammate when they're struggling, how you act when you're struggling as an athlete, those are all things that tell us a little bit about how you're going to handle the stress of college volleyball. And if you don't pass that test, chances are you're not going to get the same level of recruiting interest that you might otherwise.
How are your players able to manage academics and the demands of Division I volleyball?
The academic services vary from school to school. Here we're very fortunate. We've got a student athlete support center where all the tutors, advisors, career counselors, planners, everybody's housed in one area, where they assist them in helping create their schedule, working around practice times, travel times. Our advisors are the correspondents, the liaisons, so to speak, between our student athletes and professors to help the professors get a better understanding of the type of time constraints student athletes are under. So many schools are the same way. They have built-in academic support system, including the tutors and the advisors, and we literally try to spend extra time teaching our student athletes life skills like time management and planning and organization. And typically, volleyball players tend to be pretty strong in their time management and organization, but the ones that aren't, we do, a lot of schools do a great job of helping them organize their day to get everything that they need to get done.
What should a recruit look for specifically on a campus visit?
More than anything else, I think a recruit needs to just get a feel for the campus. Is this a place they feel like they could go to school? Is it a place that I always tell people, is it a place that they would graduate from even if they weren't playing volleyball? So is it a place that you enjoy? Does it fit your profile for a school? We always say, are you looking at schools close to home, far from home, warm climate, cold climate, doesn't matter. All those types of things are things that you want to consider when you're narrowing your list of schools. But ultimately, when you get on that campus visit, what's that feeling that you get? Is it a place you feel like you could call home for the next 4 to 5 years of your life? Are you around people that you feel like you can trust to help get you where you want to be in those next 4 and 5 years of your life and beyond? So those are the things that we think that recruits should look for once they get onto a campus. We always say look for red flags. You can't change red flags. If you want a school where it snows half the year, we're here in Orlando, Florida, that's a red flag. I can't change the fact that it doesn't snow. We're a large school. If somebody wants a very small and private school, this is a red flag. It's not the type of school that they should be looking for. So we tell them look for red flags. Red flags are things that you cannot change, the coach cannot change. You just have to decide if you can live with those red flags or not.
What is the role of a parent in the recruiting process?
Parents should be more in a role of supporting, of giving advice, of asking questions, of helping their student athlete articulate the feelings, help them work through various problems. Sometimes parents get highly involved in the process, and they're the ones that are doing all the corresponding. And frankly, we like to hear from parents from time to time, but we don't want all the correspondence coming from parents. We really want the student athletes to take control over their own destiny. But parents should be there to help allow the student athlete to reflect their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions, and help play devil's advocate when they're at a crossroads of making a decision. So parents really should be there more in a supportive role than anything else.
Can you give examples of how meeting the demands of collegiate athletics has prepared your former players in their lives after college?
I can. I think I'll give you a great example. A school like what we're doing right now, UCF, is we have a marketing agency that actually is a part of the athletic department. They've actually paid money to mentor high-achieving student athletes with the hope of being able to recruit those student athletes to be in their company when they graduate. Why? Because student athletes have learned everything that you need to learn to cope with the real-world workforce. You've learned time management, you've learned organization, you've learned perseverance, you've learned how to come back from failure. All those things that are associated with competition that we have to learn lessons from on a daily basis, employers are looking for that. There's actually medical schools that are out there looking for student athletes because when things get difficult, student athletes don't run. They actually try to rise to the occasion. And so there is nothing like college sports to prepare somebody for the real world. I always like to say, I want to be the toughest boss that anybody will ever have. And if that's the case, they're going to go on and they're going to do wonderful in their chosen profession when all is said and done.
The bonus question, is there anything important that you would like to share directly with high school athletes or volleyball players in particular as they navigate the recruiting process?
The best advice that I could give to anybody that's going through this process is to be organized, make detailed notes, have an idea going into it what you're looking for. I had mentioned earlier, big school, small school, doesn't matter. Part of the country, it doesn't matter. Type of academic program, it doesn't matter. All those things are initial questions that you have to answer for yourself as you work through the process. And then you see who's interested in you, who you're interested in, you begin to narrow your list. From there, you begin to do your research online and start to figure out if you think that school is a fit. If you think the school is a fit, then you should plan to take a visit. When you take a visit, I always tell athletes to have a notebook, a journal that they take on a visit with them. And in that journal, they take some time after the visit and make notes, columns. In their columns, it should say what I like about that school. Next column, what I don't like about that school. And in the third column, what I still need to know about that school. And you really have to treat it as a business decision. And really, it's a 4 or 5 year transaction between a program and a student athlete. Student athlete is going to perform for the program, and the program is going to have the services of the student athlete to be successful. And ultimately, it comes down to making the right choice based on the right fit and the right feel. And I think organization is the biggest part of anything in terms of the recruiting process. Going back to the journal, the reason why I say keep detailed notes and write those notes down immediately after a visit is because after 4 or 5 or 6 visits, all the schools start to blend in together. Schools are unique in very unique ways, and it's important that you remember what made that school unique. And that's why I say write it down. So I'd say keep a journal, keep notes, be organized, correspond with coaches, and you'll do real well in the recruiting process.